Yes.
You answer to that?
Oh, no, somebody has to.
Just tell me how wonderful that sense line was.
Who's doing that? I would say what the close right word to say. This is I have to sit on purpose.
A lot could have happened this year, but unfortunately didn't. But that does not mean that it cannot. And hopefully this will be the beginning of I think, a very productive year. I'm going to turn over the meeting over to Phil, and we're going to go over old business, new business, and try to do the best with the time that we have. Phil?
Thanks. All right, just as you don't know me, which looks like about everybody, I'm Phil Chase, and I've been involved with chess since the 70s. I organized the U.S. Women's Championship in 1979, and just recently I wrote an article on the history of women's chess and the U.S. Championship, which was in the Chess Journalist magazine. So you can check that out. So I had a few comments I wanted to make before we got onto this agenda here. I hope everyone's really cooperative today, because if not, the Hemlock Room is 2 doors down. We may have to send some people over there.
I just did it, yeah.
There's actually a sign to it already.
Oh, okay.
Oh, there's one back there too? Okay.
So on the agenda for now, and what I've heard discussed already, it was primarily what can we do to promote women's chess, but it didn't really address the bigger question of why there should be this committee in the first place, and what are the goals of the people who are here and maybe around the country who have some other kind of positive ideas. I think there's several rationales for having a women's committee or promoting women in chess, but really there's one that's by far the most important, and the reason why I think that we need to be more aggressive and, say, get the U.S. Chess Trust to quintuple their participation, and we'll see what else we can do. We'll let them know about that later. We'll keep it a secret. But first of all, some people think it's important to have this kind of a group because there's a moral imperative to have more women playing chess, since that would lead us to support the American values of equality and justice. It's just morally correct to do that. That's one reason to do this. Another one might be that it makes us feel good that we're doing something to help a minority that needs to be represented in a greater way. So we'll feel great if we could do something there. Look at what we've done. I think the most important reason by far is that there's a really gigantic pool of individuals that don't participate in tournaments and don't participate in chess to the degree that we want. We all know that. But I think deep down, most people don't really believe that can change. We do work on the margins, but I don't think people really believe that that can change. Now, from what I've heard, there are approximately 80,000 members of the USCF, and about 4% are women, so that would be about 3,000 out of 80,000. Now, if it were true that there could be an equal interest between men and women, and there's no reason why there shouldn't be, that means there's approximately 77,000, no, I'm sorry, that doesn't quite work out right. Yes, 77,000 prospective members who are not participating now. Gee, that would be pretty fantastic for the chess world, and especially for the USCF, if we could get that number or even a significant percentage to participate. There's a very practical reason. Whenever this is brought up, the assumption that people make, most people, many people, article after article, is chess is just one of those arenas where men gravitate to it and women don't. You can try, you can promote, but really it's just one of those arenas where that's just not going to change. So I thought I'd look at a few other areas where people thought that couldn't change. In 1960, 1% of the biomed students in colleges were women. Today it's 60%. I don't know, women weren't very good at biology, so that's probably why they just would never want to gravitate to it. But somehow by accident, now more than half of all the people pursuing that field are women. In engineering, the effective number in 1960 was 0%. I believe there was an individual or two, but effectively 0%. Now, majority no, but it's up to about 30% of engineers are now women. Caltech is a school near where I live. I go there all the time to hobnob with the people and pretend I'm smart. And their female enrollment has increased 1,000% in the last 20 years. Okay, it started off from a low base, but still, that's a third example that in fields very specifically that were assumed to be just one of those arenas where women wouldn't be interested, or if they tried, wouldn't make it. Well, in every case, that's just been shown to be silly. So, for everyone that's here, everyone that's around the country not here, the one that's going to hear from us, maybe we should make it clear that you can be on a committee and do nothing. I don't think this committee is any special in that regard. I think many people on many committees don't do much. But if you think that the good reason to be here is for moral reasons, I don't really think that's going to lead to the kind of work we want to get done. But if we want to be practical, if we want to be optimistic at the same time, and say, why shouldn't we double the membership of the USCF? Then that will involve some more work by a lot of people than has happened in the past. Now this year I worked some with Isabel, and I know that she contacted a lot of people in a lot of different ways and got sort of discouraged after a while about the feedback. And maybe this is just spinning our wheels again, but I really wanted to get clear in people's minds, why are we here? And I hope it's because we think that chess in general can benefit greatly from the vast expansion of female membership. So now we go back to the agenda here. Does everybody have a copy of that? There's one in the back if you don't have one. Most agendas for meetings, you'll notice, don't start with old business. They start with the minutes. Well, there aren't any minutes at last year's meeting, or the year before either. So maybe we should start with that. I was just going to get to that.
I don't think any workshop ever has minutes from the previous meeting.
You're saying they do or they don't?
They don't.
Well, I don't think that's a good, I don't think that's a good precedent. I think it's a bad precedent.
If you're going to have action items and you're really going to be serious about following up on them, it's a good idea to document them. And the way to start that process is with minutes, and for somebody to take the minutes and develop a plan, and you work on a plan. So I actually think it's an excellent idea.
Thank you. All right, if there's no volunteers, I'll choose Ethan. Okay, maybe not.
Are there any volunteers? I can help.
Hey, Ruth, I know the Trophies Plus guys
recognize the top youths at all our national scholastic events, why don't we talk to Trophies Plus about some recognition for the top girl players too, as opposed to just the top players overall?
Yeah, that's under new business. We have a lot of discussions about promotion, et cetera, and that's definitely, that can be the first item when we get to that.
Do you want to join us up here, Jennifer?
Sure, you can tell me what I need to add. I'm just going to type it in.
Okay.
So.
So we'll start with that, and that'll be a good start. We will assume that there weren't any minutes from last year, but I know one thing that happened was that Isabel was chosen to chair the committee for this year. I know that happened last year. So obviously one brilliant thing happened, and for the rest of it, well, you know, it probably wasn't worth recording anymore. So we'll try to do better this time. All right, so the old business.
On the Trophies Plus question, for the U.S. Girls Junior Open, there were plaques for unrated Class EDCA, first, second, and third place, plus scholarships of 500, 300, and 150 for first, second, and third place, and that was a Trophies Plus scholarship. So,
They're
so we
already
get that
involved.
on the record?
Yes. I also wanted to add that at last year's meeting, I believe there is a proactive initiative to produce the U.S. Women's Open, which you have. Granted, it's being held at a very awkward time, but there is a U.S. Women's Open going on.
So that's something I think we should discuss in a lot of detail, but I'm not sure where do you want to put that on the timing, the prizes, and getting better participation. So I don't know if we want to skip to that, or if we have an order.
Okay, no, why don't we put that under participation, which is already here on the agenda, and then we can do that at that point. No, there's no rush. We're going to get to everything pretty quickly. So for old business, the first item, I guess, is that there was $1,000 which was donated by the U.S. Trust for promotion, and I think the question was what happened with that, and so would you have an insight into what happened with that?
I think it may have been budgeted. I don't
Oh,
know
it was
if
budgeted,
we
but not necessarily
actually
spent. I see.
spent the money, which may be in part my problem as chairman, but maybe in part that we weren't sure how to spend it. Now, Ruth Herring did approach me a few months ago about something new, which is this mixed doubles idea, and I put that on the agenda for our trust meeting, which will be this Thursday at 1 o'clock, and everybody here is invited, because we do want a way to support women's chess, and the other way was, I think we were talking about, we just talked about Ruth at lunch today.
Yes, the other idea, which actually I had discussed with Anatoly Karpov at lunch, I asked him, well, how did Russia do it? How did you get so many women playing, and then because there were so many playing, you developed some excellent players? Granted, they had a good system. And he said, well, it was very simple. We mandated that there be a woman in every team tournament on every team. So I was thinking, and I thought, well, we really can't do that here, but what we can do is we can put some money towards teams that have a woman, and we should make that money, that prize money, for those teams be better than the prize money for all male teams, so that it incents the team to go out and recruit women to be on the team, and they're eligible for better prizes. And you know, it's a little bit of social engineering, I have to admit, but it gets our membership involved in getting women to play, and that's what we want, because if it comes from the grassroots, and it comes from the families and the brothers and sisters saying, come on, you gotta come and play, we need a woman on the team, because we're eligible for this $500 prize, that's gonna work. And that's what Steve Emmett said in his email about his experience with the mixed double prize. So I think we ought to build on that idea, and then when you add to it the experience that they had in Russia, which is, you know, they do it a different way there, but hey, it was the same thing. You have to have a woman on your team, so you go out and you look for the best women players and you recruit them to be on your team. So anyway, that's sort of the little idea I had there was, let's get some money from the Chess Trust and from the sponsors to spike up some prizes something that's just a part of the team tournament in the future. That right now we're starting and we have to figure out how to make it acceptable, because obviously if we say that's regulation, that won't go over well in the beginning. Comments?
I think the mixed doubles idea is really great because it's using the free marketplace, really, to encourage that. And I've talked to Stephen about that. And, you know, it leads directly to women being recruited onto teams. You know, the phones start ringing and they're invited on teams because there's that prize out there.
It's very exciting, but I'm thinking of the team format also. I'm thinking about teamies, I'm thinking about scholastic team tournaments, and I'm thinking about collegiate team tournaments. In that environment, particularly scholastics, we have a much higher percentage of women's participating in the chess programs. So there's no reason that there shouldn't be women's representatives on those teams. So I'm thinking that that's like a really fertile area for trying to start a program like this and make it successful.
Did you need footwear team matches? And the scholastic arena, that's kind of, I mean, believe me, it's my favorite idea, but it's very hard to manage because our nationals are run with individuals, you know, so it's very hard to ensure inclusion.
Well, yeah, so, you know, it has to be carefully thought through, right? So, I mean, Steve was successful just with his idea, and the question is, how do we build on that idea and find what works for us? So it's not necessarily my idea or Steve's idea, it's what's going to work for us, because the goal here is to increase membership. And it's really a bonus that it's going to increase female membership. But if we have as many females playing as men playing chess, we'll double our membership. And probably will more than double our membership. So that's the real goal.
And that's why this sounds really interesting, but it seems like you're drawing in players who are already playing into like a team tournament or something like that. They're already playing somehow because the teams are going to try to get the best player possible. And that's not a bad thing, but it's not necessarily going to be doing the outside recruiting. It's bringing people from the outside in.
Well, it is, because you have women who are not active, okay? And there's a tournament happening. And sorry to interrupt. But what's happening is when you have this team concept, then what they do is they get on the phone and they say, there's this $500 prize here that we can win if we have a woman on our team. And they convince their friends and family members who are, you know, tournament chess players who aren't playing in the tournament, get back involved in the game.
Okay. I think it's worth a try, but I want to see how it actually worked out.
I would say it also has the effect that you're looking for of involving people outside the pool, because then women on the team become prominent, they become reported on when they win the prize, and there are also more women on the teams, and that's
actually
more inviting environment.
That's actually a bigger question, which comes down to publicity, which is a little later too.
Well, but I mean,
but
it's all.
But it
it's
should
all
be, but it
basic.
isn't necessarily. For example, in the Pacific Southwest Open tournament that just happened in Los Angeles over July 4th, the winner of the open section was Tata Abrahamian, and the winner of the amateur section was Stephanie Shao. And as far as I know, it's the first time in a major tournament, you know, the winner of every section was a female. And but the publicity wasn't significant. And to me, that was a great opportunity that we really should have taken advantage of, and probably still can in some ways. But so what I'm saying is, yes, participation is great, but we have to follow that through, because otherwise it gets lost really, really quickly.
So what attempts were made to publicize that?
Well, I'd ask Randy about that, and then
That's
he can
right.
refer you to the appropriate sources.
Okay, and then did you get Steve Evans' email about the mixed double experiment?
I don't know if I did.
Okay, so we'll forward that.
Please do.
Okay.
So we're still on old business, item
Yes.
8.
Sure.
Okay, if we allocate a budget of X amount of money, who's responsible for developing a spend plan for that budget?
Well, this last
I
year,
mean, it's not, go ahead.
I think that, Isabella, with help from the other people in the group, was, I think that's right, was asked to make some proposals about that. but I don't think there's any set rule.
Because I think we should do is propose
Well,
a,
yeah, it depends where the money's coming from.
Depends if it's coming
I mean, if it's
from,
coming from the
well, I guess my
trust,
point
it's
is, I think we
coming
should
from
have a
USCF.
date in mind. By a certain date, we have a spend plan developed, so that we can then execute the plan for the remainder of the year.
right, that's actually right, that's good.
So,
Yeah, if it's for trust, the trust needs a specific request, a
Right,
specific
and let's
proposal.
suppose it has to be spent in a certain year, would you need to know by, say, October 1st, or what is a date that is a good date for you to know that this is the plan?
Well, there are two parts to it. One is our meeting, which will be tomorrow, we budget the money.
Right.
And usually, it's good if we have something,
Or even
idea what
advance
we're
that.
budgeting
Right,
for.
right.
And then, yeah, I would say if we know by October, that would be fine. Because something else has come up, and I guess USCF asked for something called the Junior Girls, which could be an invitational event. And that's something else that would be a way that the trust might want to support. So,
All right, so why don't we say that the Women's Committee will make a proposal to the trust for a certain budget, and whatever's agreed on there, then there will be a plan by October 1st. And maybe everyone will be notified before then to make any adjustments, changes, or suggestions. Does that sound reasonable? Okay. Hearing no outcries of anger, I'll go yes.
Okay, and then we would distribute that to interested parties in the room here, or how are we going to communicate?
Well, if everyone signs up with their contact information, they'll have that. And then let me talk to.
is there a sheet going around with the people's emails?
It's in the back of
We
the
already
room.
got it. Perfect.
Oh, okay. I didn't know, I forgot if emails were on there.
Emails are on there too. But if your email isn't on the sheet, then please put it on. And then maybe I can talk to Jennifer about how to make sure that we can just get all the information we're doing today out to everyone.
I would be happy to email you these notes that I'm making, and we'll figure that out.
Okay, we can just have like a group list and just send it out there. Okay, is there other old business, or was there other old business?
The Women's Committee report that Isabel did mention that she had done a mailing or emailing to different states about where they were holding girls' tournaments, and she got responses from some, but obviously not from everyone.
Right.
And that's in her report on page 56 and 57, I think I think it's called.
Right, and the idea was to have a girls' tournament in every state. And then what we will do, even if it's like 4, doesn't matter. And when we all do it in the same month, which the majority of them were in March, then we can publicize that. And every state we will have a girl to show for it. And then maybe later on when we get down to E, we can put that in the Chess Life magazine and just promote it, so that it will be more of a synergy. It will be where all the states will come together. Doesn't matter how big or small, at least we will start that process. That was the idea behind it. And I was thinking of we were thinking more of a scholastic, because it all really starts with girls. And then, kind of, into women and all that. I mean, we bunched scholastic girls into women, but the focus, if it's on the girls, it will be a beginning.
So,
What age limit do you have in mind for that? I mean, is it under 21, under 18,
K through 12,
K through
scholastic.
12? Okay. So through high school.
Wisconsin is planning on having a girls section in the junior tournament this year. That's in November. Actually, it's October this year. That changed. But that's how we're planning on holding ours. The idea of holding a separate tournament, completely separate, is wonderful until you get to the idea of who's paying for the site.
I want to ask, first of all, have we kind of moved on to the states and nationals girls tournaments under new business A1? Because I feel like this is that discussion.
Yeah, somehow
Oh, sorry.
no, it went from the other to new business because it
All
was part
right.
of the same thing. So
Okay,
yes, it was
perfect.
very smooth.
Well, Isabel, do you have anything else to report?
No.
Okay.
And I also wanted to say, I don't know, I know that site costs are prohibitive, incredibly. And exclusionary. I think it sends the wrong message. I think that it's not about that. I think that women's chess, and maybe this is not quite the right word for that, but I think that women's chess is a social activity. I think that it's meant to be, not that women are chess players at the highest level, but that the only reason that I consider it segregated is because I like to see my female friends at a tournament once a year. And I go there and I see them. And I don't see them, I mean, occasionally they go to other tournaments, but the women's tournament we run in Michigan, I've played in every one since 1986. And we also had some that ran before I started playing them. And you go there every year and you sort of see the same people. And there's some new people, and there's junior girls. We've had a lot of junior girls start playing. We actually had so many people a couple of years that we divided it into 2 sections. And it's not it's not a girls' tournament. It's a women's tournament. And we just happen to have a lot of young participation in a women's tournament. And we have this, because we don't want to pay site costs either. So there's a guy who has a place in the state where we can use the tournament for free or for 50, use this site for free or for $50, something that's nominal. Now I guess that we are actually blessed with something that probably most people don't have. We actually have a special endowment for women's chess in Michigan. There was it's called the Kellner Fund, and the brother of a female player in Michigan gave us some money. And we can't touch the principal, but we can spend every year on the interest. And the interest, because of the way everything works out, it got melted into our general fund. And so we don't really know what the interest is. But
It's
whatever.
probably not much anyway.
Right.
Well, this-
Yeah. So I know that, I'm certain of that. But the point is that because that money is there, and that every year we get a little bit from that we are able to put on an event that no longer has cash prizes, but is, I don't know, it's definitely social, and it definitely happens every year.
And how about,
And it's a good thing. It's
Yeah.
a good thing.
Yeah, it's a great thing. It's
so how would the winner feel about if there were a national event where that winner would be invited with all winners of all the other states?
I think it would be brilliant.
Yeah.
And I think that what we did a few years ago when they had the Invitational Girls Tournament that was held at the U.S. Open, we actually wrote a rule for how we would choose our representative for that event. And so we didn't want to have a separate Scholastic Girls Tournament at the junior, because then you limit the participation of the Scholastic players. And so what we did was we wrote a rule. We said, here, you have to play the women's tournament. If you win the women's tournament, no other, and you are eligible, then no other questions asked. You go to the invitational event. And if you don't win the tournament, then we'll just give it to the top finisher in the Open Junior event, because that seemed to be the most rigid criteria we could come up with to make sure that we had the best candidate for that position. And they would have, if they win the women's tournament, they beat all the best players in the state, regardless of what their age is. So it seems pretty
This is like, in
strong.
principle, we think this is a good idea to have state tournaments, and then winners can go to a national event. So in principle, it's a
The
good
question
idea.
is, what's the national event that has the prestige? When we had the pole
No,
barn tournament, it was clear for
No,
Scholastic.
it's a great national event, just like there's the,
But
the
now we don't have an event that had the same incentives that the pole barn
no, I
used to
think,
have.
the Danker,
So let me interrupt.
Hold-
Bill Hall, can you come up and tell us what women's events we have right now at a national level, so we're all on the same page as to what events currently exist? So we don't want to create something that we already have.
We currently have, this is the pseudo-inaugural U.S. Women's Open, which unfortunately didn't have much participation.
How much did you have though?
I think there's 6 players. Is there 7? Okay, well, I saw 6. I saw 7 playing. So the 7th was not at the board, obviously. We also have the Girls Junior Open, U.S. Girls Junior Open, that's here. But we've had it 2 years now, and participation's been fairly small thus far. I think there were 8 or 9 in it this year.
It's 2 years in the fall, isn't it?
because
Thirty
when,
days.
when it used to